I sent you the Ksav Yad this week. Okay. Now, why did I do that? Because the piece is basically a short piece. If I had to send you the Ksav Yad of the next piece we're doing, that next piece took place over 30 years. Okay. So I'd have to send you like a quarter of a page in one place, a quarter of a page in another place. It would be too difficult. But here, the piece that Rabbi Yaakov,
let me ask you something. When you say it was over the course of 30 years, would he have like a draft text of a certain like Dvar Torah, and he would add to the same text over the years?
Yeah, he would write on the text. I can even show you here. It doesn't show in this Ksav Yad over here in this page, but I could show you where he says Ayin Numer 7055. And then Ayin Numer 1833. And then now it could be 5 lines on that page.
Uh-huh.
Because he's got other stuff on the page. If you take a look at the page over here, it's actually Chof Ches Mar Cheshvan, right? I don't remember the year, but you have to look at the beginning of the year. That's the only time he writes the year. Is when he gets to Tishrei, he writes to the year, and then he doesn't repeat writing it till the next year. So here it just starts off by saying Chof Ches Mar Cheshvan, okay, and that's what he was machadish on Chof Ches Mar Cheshvan, and maybe some other stuff on the next page he was machadish as well, okay. But on the same page, you could have Ha'ara in the Rambam, you could have a Pshat in the Mishnayos, a Pshat in the Gemara, another Pshat in Shulchan Aruch on the same page, right? So what's he going to do? And then he comes up with something new. So he then tells you, I'm going to continue it 48 pages later or 300 pages later. He has stuff that he didn't continue for 300-400 pages.
How many years did he keep this diary that we have the Ksav Yad?
So the Ksav Yad starts in Lithuania. Okay, so we're talking about it was definitely from 1920, probably 1920, 25, okay, till probably 1925 to 1982.
Wow.
Okay, so and there's 2,200 pages in there of written material, and then he has some other stuff in like separate little stuff that he has. For instance, Professor Zev Lev asked me when he was alive, the head of the Lev Institute, asked me if I had Reb Yaakov's notes on Shari Tshuva. So I said to him, Reb Yaakov never wrote on the Shari Tshuva. So he says to me, you don't know what you're talking about. Okay. I remember when I lived in his house in Toronto, he was writing on the Shari Tshuva. He was learning through Shari Tshuva. He's writing stuff on the Shari Tshuva. So I never got that. I don't know if it even exists today. I'm not sure. Okay. But you see that there was other things he wrote in separate little, notebooks. So I have some of those. The stuff that's the Geya Tanach, I do have some of them. But most of us, I would say 80% or 90% is the Ksav Yad that I'm reading from now, which it says 1963. You see on the bottom. So it goes up to 2180. Okay, it stops at age 92 and a half. It goes up to 2180. So here we're at 1963. Okay, I actually have the last volume of his Ksav Yad. In other words, here I have what do you call it? From the Ksav Yad, I have photocopies, right? But if I'm not mistaken, the last this was his notebook, right? I can't see it. I don't know. Closer. It doesn't work. I don't know why.
I don't know why. It's got to be in front of your face.
Yeah, put it next to your face.
Like this?
Next to.
No, it doesn't work either. I don't know why.
Not in front, but next to.
Is it good?
Not in
Like the
front of your
same-
face. Put it next
Ah,
to.
like this?
Right
Oh,
here.
yes. Man, you need a scientist for that?
The Zoom scientist.
So here is I have the last notebook because it was given to me because I was missing stuff. Okay. 2187. 21.
Put it next to your left or right.
Well, wait a second, Rabbi Shurin. There's a better way to fix this. Rabbi Shurin, look on the screen. You see to the left at the bottom it says video?
Video?
You see at the bottom on the left?
Yeah.
So now click on that little triangle there. And it'll
Yeah.
say blur my background. Uncheck that.
Ah, I see.
And then everything, yeah, there you go. Now hold up the, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you see that it ends over here? You see that it ends? That's 2187. Okay? It ends, and we actually have the new year. Tuf Shin Mem Dalet.
1984.
1984, that's when it ended. That was the last thing he wrote, something on Tanach, a short thing. And he had a stroke that year, and then he stopped writing. Okay? But till then, he was writing.
Rav Shurin, you mentioned he had a daily limud in Tanach and Mishnah and Gemara. So
Right.
this is his daily chidushim on that daily limud?
Yeah, in other words, here, I'll give you Asar B'Teves, the year before the last year. Chul in Daf Pei Amud Aleph. Okay? Then Daf Tzadi Hey Amud Aleph in Chulin. He must have been learning pretty quickly. On the same page, Shmuel Aleph, chapter Chav Hey Pasuk Beis. Right? And then he's learning through Sefer Shmuel. So he has stuff on Sefer Shmuel over here. Then he's writing much less, I see, but more on Tanakh here, less. All of a sudden on the page of Shmuel it says Gemara Brachas Daf Tes Amud Aleph Rashi, right? So he was obviously maybe learning in the Daf Hayomi. Yeah, here he has Brachas Daf Lamed. So he was maybe learning the Daf Hayomi, and then if he thought of something, right? Here on the same page, Rif. He has the Rif on Gittin, Daf Kufnun Tes in the Rif, and then at the next thing is the Rambam Perek Yud Gimel Milcha Shmita.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a seder in all these different things every day, and number one, when he was machat, something popped into his head. If he had the time, he wrote it down, and that's why I wanted you to see this, because in the Ksav Yad it's much shorter than Rav Daniel Neustadt, who's a big Talmud Chacham, wrote it up and changed it. Meaning he didn't change the idea, but he added, he changed the wording. And I want you, when you get a chance, to compare the difference, because I think there's certain interesting things in the Ksav Yad that now never appear in the Sefer. Okay? And Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky was aware of this. So when he used the Ksav Yad for Nach, he wrote the Ksav Yad the way it is, and if he needed to add something to make it clear, he clarified it on the bottom, and that explains why Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky's bottom is so large. If you take a look at Chumash, it's a few lines, the bottom, and Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky sometimes half the page. Why? Because Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky is trying to explain what Reb Yaakov said in a very short way, but in a longer way, right? Sometimes he'll bring other commentaries that maybe disagree with Reb Yaakov as well. But a lot of the times he's just bringing Gemaras or a Medrash. I want to tell you that Reb Daniel Neustadt in this one brings a Medrash that Reb Yaakov doesn't say. But it fits very well that was Reb Yaakov's Kavanah. But Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky would have brought that Medrash on the bottom and said, Reb Yaakov, Reb Yaakov knew Medrash Rabbah pretty well. I don't know if he knew it by heart, but he knew it pretty well. It could be that he thought about the Medrash, but he simply didn't have the time to write it or look it up, right? So that's why he left it out. But I think he would have said Kedeita, Medrash Rabbah, something. That's what I think. So I don't know if he was thinking about the Medrash or not, but we'll have to go through it and see. Does everybody see the Ksav Yad?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Ksav Yad says, Chav Ches Mar Cheshvan, Bereshis Chav Daled Lam, Pasuk Lametes. Okay. Now I'm going to need to help you out over here because his writing is pretty easy to read if you take a look, but you got to get used to it. Okay. Rashi Dibra Maschil Ulai Lo Telecha Isha. So that's where, and Pasuk Lametet, which is already towards, is the end of the story where the Eved is telling the Rivka's family about the whole thing that happened, and then he adds in, I spoke to my master Avraham, right, and I told him Ulai Lo Telecha Isha, right. So Rashi says it doesn't say Ulai with a vav. It says Ulai without a vav. Elai ksiv. We read it as Ulai, right? It's a kubitz, right? But it doesn't have the vav. Okay. So Bataita Eliezer vayemachazer libtzo ila sheyomar lo Avraham lifnot elav ulasio bito. Eliezer was like Mechazer means he was like trying to find, right? Ila, excuse. Sheyomalo Avram lifnot, that Avram would say to him, lifnot elav ulasio bito, that Avram would turn to him and want to have Yitzchak, have Yitzchak marry his daughter. Amalei Avram, b'ni baruch v'ata orur, ve'en orur medabek b'baruch. Okay, that's the Rashi. In other words, what is Rashi bothered with over here? It says Eli, it's Ksiv Eli, so it sounds like he's saying to me, right? Right? You know that Eli lo telecha isha, right? Or lo telecha isha Eli, or lo telecha isha kama. So Eli, if the woman doesn't want to go, so it'll go to me, and Avram's Yitzchak will marry my daughter, right? That's what Rashi over here says, and he says from that word you see that Eliezer was sort of had a kavana to be mekalkel the shidduch, meaning he told over this thing, and the way it's written is to be meramis to us that he wanted to be mekalkel the shidduch and say, well, if she doesn't want to come along, right? So Eli, okay, that's the Rashi. Now Avram Avinu, of course, said to him, "We can't get married because you're a Canaanite." Okay, Vehine, Hikshu. Behold, they ask. Okay, so Reb Yaakov doesn't say who. He means the Mefarshim ask, and that's why Rabbi Nustat put in Hikshah Mefarshim. I'm pretty sure. On your own time, you'll compare it. You can compare it while I'm talking. Valo hu amal Avraham ulai bevav. Right. In other words, Mefarshim say, wait, when he spoke to Avraham, he said it with a vav. And it was the first recording of him talking to Avram, as opposed to talking to the family of Rivka, right? When he talks to Avram, he says Ulai, and it does have a vav. Okay, so why doesn't it? In other words, why doesn't it say there without a vav? If he wants Avram to marry, he wants Yitzchak to marry his daughter, it should say over there without a vav. For Tiritz, Bekol Yaakov. Okay. And it's the answer's in the Sefer Kol Yaakov. Now, he says, the Magid. Okay? Now, Reb Yaakov left out over here, the Magid Midubna. Okay? So, of course, Rev Nustat, right, put in, right, Magid Midubno. And also, it's not really Kol Yaakov, it's Ohel Yaakov. Okay? Now, I'm not sure where Reb Yaakov got this sefer from, because I never saw the sefer in Reb Yaakov's house. So maybe someone showed it to him because he asked it as a question. Okay. In other words, what used to happen, so I could clarify, is Reb Yaakov used to sit Friday night in the winters, right? And he used to go over the parsha with the people in the shul. They used to come back after davening, and every year he would do a different aliyah. In other words, the first year he did from Rishon to Sheni. Second year he did Sheni to Shlishi, because he didn't want to repeat every year, so he did. Now, what that he did on a Friday night. So if he was machadish something on a Friday night, he couldn't write it down. Okay, what happened on Saturday night? Someone called him up and said, "Reb Yaakov, your question's already in the Dubna market." So Reb Yaakov right away said to him, "I'm just theorizing, right?" So Reb Yaakov said to him, "Okay, what does he answer?" And he told him what he answers. And the name of the sefer is Ohel Yaakov, but Reb Yaakov wrote down Kol Yaakov. I'm not sure if there is such a sefer. I understand from Daniel Nustad it's Ohel Yaakov, okay? But he brings what he answers. What I'm trying to say is I don't know if Reb Yaakov ever saw the sefer, but just heard from a person. What is this? Happened many times, by the way. The Reb Yaakov writes down what he heard, and sometimes he even writes, "I heard it." Sometimes he writes it as if it's in the sefer. Tiritz v'kol Yaakov hamagid midubno, da'adiyaku mima shesiper lahem she'amar hu la'Avraham. Okay. The diuk, the Magid Midubna says, the diuk is from that Eliezer told them what he said to Avraham. Okay. Kizeh yatil lahem sofik betiv. Okay, that word betiv doesn't exist in the printed edition, right? What is it saying over here? That the Dubna Magid says the diuk of Rashi is that Eliezer told them about what he had a discussion with Avram, right? And here I'm not sure where you have to put it. Sufik betiv. Tiv, the Gemara says in Kedushin, beginning of Kedushin, Kol she'eni yodea betiv gitnu Kedushin, right? A person that doesn't know the proper halachas, right, of Gittin Kedushin shouldn't be involved in it, right? That's why, by the way, the Rabbanut started giving a mifchan to be a Masader Kedushin 20 years ago. They started giving. Why? Because of this Gemara. People said, there's rabbis who go and Masader Kedushin, they don't know the halachas of Kedushin. So they started giving a test, right? Now, I got in before the test because I'm already there over 30 years in the Rabbanut. I'm written down that I could be Masader Kedushin. Now, I learned Siddur Kedushin under Reb Kamenetsky. We learned the Shulchan Aruch and everything, but I never took the test. So sometimes I get a Rabbanut somewhere in the country. It says, please send us the mark you got on the test, right? So I said, I never took the test because the guy asking me is 45 years old and I'm 70, right? So yes, so he says, send me a letter who you learned by, but Reb Kamenetsky is not alive anymore. So I got a letter from Reb Yosef Kamenetsky that testifies that Reb Kamenetsky taught me, right? So here the Gemara says that the word tiv, we learned as someone who doesn't know the halachas, but it doesn't literally mean that. It means like the nature or character. A suffix betiv maybe he means a suffix in the tiv of Yitzchak, in the character of Yitzchak. Sharei meichatesale shelo tovet. Why is he bringing up that maybe the girl won't want? Why are you bringing it up to Lavan and Besuel? Why you can bring it up to Avram at the beginning? You brought it up to Avram. Maybe she won't want, right? But why are you bringing it up to them? That makes no sense, right? Right? Why are you doing that, right? Elavadai shekan yesh eze shemitz shel dofi upagam. Certainly, the Dubna Magid is saying that he's trying to make there's a shemitz. He doesn't say that he really tried to break the shidduch. There's a shemitz, meaning it's missing the vav, a lie, to tell me the remez that he was being merames. By the way, Reb Yaakov has pieces, and maybe we'll learn them, where he says that the person himself, who's talking, right, is sometimes doesn't even know that he's being meramez. It's unconscious, right? Reb Yaakov has pieces like that where he says it's unconscious. It could be over here. The Torah is trying to tell us that he brought it in as part of the story, but deep down, he wanted them to say, he wanted to put in their heads, maybe you don't want to send your daughter. It's pretty far away. You want to send her, It's not such an easy country to live in, pretty far away, why are you going to send her, right? So that's what he wants to stick in their mind. So that's what the Dubna Magid says over here. Eze shemet shel dofi. Dofi you pagam. You know what that means, right? It's a dofi, like, negative, something negative. Umistabahu mipnei sherotza sheyamanu hey. And that's probably because he wanted that they should what's the word? Reject, right?
Refrain.
What? Refrain, good. Refrain, reject. V'ulai yisabito. And then he could marry his daughter off to Yitzchak. Ella, now Reb Yaakov comes in over here. That was the answer that the Dubna Magid gave. And why it's not in the first place and it's in the second place. It's a great answer if you think about it, right? Now, if you look at the Sefer, he puts in there, the Dubna Magid gives an answer and he says, b'chachmaso, like he always does, right? That Reb Yaakov doesn't say that over there, right? Even though the Dubna Magid, I have to tell you, was a chacham gadol. There's no question about it, right? So Reb Yaakov, in other words, what is he saying? He's saying he didn't say it by Avram Avinu, right? Ulai, he said by Avram Avinu. He wouldn't say Eli Avram Avinu. He really asked him the question. But here he wanted to be Makalkel the Shidduch, so that's why it says here Eli. Okay? Elishayakashali, but it was difficult to me, Reb Yaakov says, how's it possible that he wants to be Makalkel the Shidduch? Sharei Rowan Anu, we see B'chol Parsha Shu Asakol Hakol B'Mesiras Gedola. We see in the Parsha that he does everything with tremendous Mesiras Nefesh, right? He prays to God that the Shidduch could go through, that they should find. If he wants to be Makalkel, he wouldn't pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? He has that whole prayer. He's standing there by the well and he's praying, right? You want to be Makalkel the Shidduch, right? How's it possible that it dawned upon him to be Makalkel after what he did with so much, Mesiras Nefesh? Ulefikach Pirish Rashi, and therefore Rashi says, Mishum Shavram Omalo, She'ena Chofetz Bebito Mipnei Shu Oror. He remembered that what did Avram say to him? Look, I think you're a great shidduch. I got a technical problem. What's the technical problem? Your Oror. Your nation is Oror. I mean, which is not, by the way, I'm not sure how Eliezer took this. It's so not politically correct exactly for Avram to tell Eliezer, I love you dearly, but you're Oror, right? So, but he says that to him, according to Rashi, Shu Oror, Avol Ke'es Kfar Yotze Mechlal Oror. But now, at this point, he left Oror. Okay? So, what is he saying over here? He's saying, what Rashi is saying, in other words, he says the Dubna Magid's answer doesn't fully answer it, because why would Eliezer do such a thing, right? If he's praying that the shidduch should take place, why would he try to be Makalkel? So Yaakov here says, what?
Why can't it be subconscious, like you said that,
Okay, so Reb Yaakov doesn't go into that right here. Good point. Mishum sha'avram omalei she'ena chofetz bebito, right? B'pnei shu oror. Okay, that he heard from Avram, according to the Medrash, right? Avol ke'es kfar yotze mechlal oror. Here, Reb Yaakov says he left oror. He left oror. Now, Reb Yaakov doesn't say how he knows that. Okay, how does he know he left oror over here? The answer is that's why Reb Daniel Nustat puts in the Medrash here, because the Medrash says because he prayed with Emunah and Mesiras Nefesh, he left the oror. He went out of oror. He has to put that in. Now, I don't know if Reb Yaakov remembered the Medrash or not, But Rabbi Yaakov is going to deduce that he's not B'chlal Or from the Lashon HaKosav itself. Okay, and that's what Reb Yaakov wants here. Ve'im tedayik tira, and if you're medayik, you'll see ki metchilas haparsha ad pasuk chaf aleph hareu mechuna b'shem Eved. From the beginning of the parsha till pasuk chaf aleph, he's called an Eved. Umi pasuk chaf aleph mechuna b'shem Ish. Okay, and from pasuk chaf aleph, now 1 second, pasuk chaf aleph. Let me just check that. From pasuk chaf aleph, he's called Ish. 1 second. Yeah, so Reb Yaakov doesn't exactly say why it changed at that moment, but if you look, it's after the prayer. It's after the prayer, and it's after, he wants to see if this is the right woman. So, of course, he asks for water and stuff, right? And it says, Vayoretz Eved Likrato v'Agminya Mamayim. The Eved ran and said, give me. Once he tried to test her to see the right person, from then on it says Va'ish. Okay? So, in other words, he did everything. He's ishtadlus. He davened. He tested her. Now he's already called an Ish. Okay? Hareu mechuna b'shem Eved, and we pasuk chaf aleph, hu mechuna b'shem Ish, v'kiven shekei, and since this is so, dima shemeyato yochel lekalkel et inyan. Okay, he thought now he could be mekalkel the inyan. He could be mekalkel. Now why? Because now he's already an Ish, and if the Torah calls him an Ish, an Eved is called the person who's cursed. But if he's called an Ish, he's already not considered cursed anymore. And therefore, now he knows he did everything he could. He's called an Ish. And therefore, the Ish, no, it's not that he heard them calling him an Ish. That's not what's going on. The Torah is calling him an Ish, meaning, right, that he realizes he's not Mekulkal anymore. That's what the Torah is trying to tell you by using the word Ish. I'm not Mekulkal anymore, right? Okay. Sharehu Talmud Chacham Yosef Betuel. He's a bigger Talmud Chacham than Betuel. Notice that Reb Daniel Lustat doesn't have that at all. Because if you think about it, it's a little bit strange that Eliezer is a bigger Talmud Chacham than Betuel. What the heck does that mean, right? Okay, the answer is, what is Reb Yaakov referring to? The Gemara Psachim. The Gemara Psachim says, La'olam, a person should marry off his daughter to a Bas Talmud Chacham, right? And Eliezer was a Talmud of Avraham Avinu. He's God's finest Talmud Chacham, we say, right? Right, exactly. Right? He was Dolo Mashkia. Of course, he had all his rabbis. So he says, who told me? So what is he trying to say, Reb Yaakov? That he's thinking to himself, who would Avram want to marry Yitzchak off to? Besuel or a Talmud Chacham? Because I'm not cursed anymore. There was a technical problem that's not here anymore. Right? So he says, so that's what he says. Sharehu Talmud Chacham Yosef Besuel. So I don't know why Daniel Lustat didn't put that in, but I'm sure Reb Yaakov is referring to that Gemara. Ulefikach Omar Elai, right? Lo ulai lo soveh, meaning without a vav, right? The kiven shekain, and since this is thus, and since he did what he did here, he wanted to be makalkel the shidduch. Again, he wanted to do a shemitz of it, like he didn't do it explicitly, but implicitly, and like Stu pointed out, maybe even unconscious, right? The kiven shekain nichra shuv leklal orur. Kimeata Hushab Mechuna B'Shem Eved, right? He's Mechuna only one other time as Eved after this. Now he's B'Shem Eved for Rak Pam Achad Katuv Pasuk Mem Aleph, which of course this is a mistake. It's not Pasuk Mem Aleph, it's Pasuk Samach Aleph. V'Taylachna Acharei Ish. There it says Acharei Ish one more time, right? So immediately after Ulai Lo Toveh, he's called Eved again. So Reb Yaakov says, why there? Because that's when he wanted to be Mekalkalit. So automatically he went back to Eved because
how did he know he supposedly became an Ish? I mean, he wasn't reading the Torah, right? So,
right. That's what I'm saying. It's not that he heard that. He had some sort of feeling after he davened and did everything that is an Ish, right? And the Torah is telling you that he was right. He was an Ish. So the Neil Lustak gets around that by just bringing a medrash, because the medrash says that from the time he davened, he's called an Ish because he had emunah. So you can go from Orur to Baruch. You're not stuck your whole life there. It seems like from the medrash, if you do something very special, you're not stuck there,
but
right?
you can go back also. It seems.
But you can go back also, right? That the medrash doesn't talk about. That's Reb Yaakov talking. So here, Reb Yaakov, according to the Parshanut, claims, right? That's the idea of Eved. He's called an Eved because he's Orur. And then all of a sudden he's called a Nish to tell me that he left Orur. In other words, Reb Yaakov would say, I have a riot to the Medrash. What's the riot to the Medrash? All of a sudden he's called Ish. The Medrash doesn't use this riot. All the Medrash says that he left Orur and he became Baruch. Right? So Reb Yaakov says, I have a riot to the Medrash. What's the riot to the Medrash? He's called Ish. Now, then all of a sudden he's back, except for one place. Now, it's really two places. And that's what Reb Daniel Lustak points out. But Reb Yaakov felt that the other place, I don't even have to talk about. What's the other place? Where Betuel says, right, calls him an Ish. And Rabbi Lustak puts in over there as if he's talking about, talking in the words, he's talking out what Reb Yaakov would have said, right? And he's not wrong that where Betuel is talking, he's not going to call him an Eved. Okay? Where the author is talking, meaning where God writes it, there Eved and Ish makes sense, but where I'm talking to the person, right? I'm not going to I'm going to say, go with the Eved, right? It's like a little bit strange to say that, go with the Eved. Go with the Ish, right? So, but there's one place, Vatelach nachareo Ish, right? That's the only place. The Efsh, now Reb Yaakov comes up with a very interesting idea here, okay? A Gemara in Brachas. The Efsh lefikach dorshu mikan dachareya ish v'lo lefneya ish b'brachas daf samach aleph amud aleph ayin sham. Okay, what does Reb Yaakov mean over here? You know, there's a famous Gemara there. The Gemara says that Manoach was an Amoritz because it says he went after his wife. He walked behind his wife, right? There's a machlokus there, right? One says he went after her Eitzah, and one says he went after he was an Amoritz. Okay. Then the Gemara says, what do you mean an Amoritz? He didn't even know a pasuk in Chumash. The pasuk in Parshas Chayesara, the Gemara says, it says, right? Vatelechna acharei ish. She went after the ish, and the Gemara is medayik, right? Acharei ish v'lo lefnei ish, right? So not only was Manoach an Amoritz, he didn't even know a pasuk Chumash. That's what the Gemara says. Okay, so Reb Yaakov says, where are they medayik from the fact that it says vatelachna acharei ha'ish v'lo lifnei ha'ish, right? Right? Why are they medayik that? Right? Where do they get it from? This new halacha, you're not allowed to walk behind your wife, right? Or behind a woman, right? Here you see it behind the woman, right? Manoach walked behind his wife, which again is. If I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, the Gemara brings that up. How do you do he's an Amoritz? It was after his wife, not after a woman. But the Gemara talks about that. If I'm not mistaken, the Gemara talks. I don't remember, but either the Gemara or the Mefarshim talk about it. Okay, but here Reb Yaakov wants to know where you're getting it from. She went acharei ish. You know why? He's her ways. How's she going to get back to what she was? Did she visit Israel? Did she do a year abroad? How is she going to get go back to Israel? Right? So Reb Yaakov says no because it says ish. If it would say Eved, like it should have said, right? There wouldn't be anything over here. She went after the Eved, meaning the Eved's not a person. The Eved is nechasim. He's just nechasim. That you can't prove anything. But after an ish. That's why it calls him a niche over here. because it shouldn't really use the word ish here. It should use the word Evan. Why did he use ish? To tell me the new halacha. So Reb Yaakov comes up with a new idea on how the Gemara in Brachas is medayik from here. This halacha that you don't walk after, that a woman should walk behind a man and not in front of a man. Okay? That's a whole interesting idea. Nobody says this pshat in the Gemara. Okay? If you look at the Marsha, you look at the Torah Tamima, they all have kvetching pshatim in the Gemara. Okay? I said to you, she had to walk behind him because of this. So they try to kvetch. No, she would have figured out by herself. She had a map. She had this. The Pashut Pshat, she had to walk behind him because, So where you being medayik that she shouldn't walk in front of him? She had to walk behind because she didn't know the way, right? The answer is it says ish, and ish tells me that you have to be behind a man and not in front of a man. Okay, that is Reb Yaakov over here. By the way, Reb Daniel at the end is not so clear as what Reb Yaakov wrote over here. Mikan dacharei ish lo lifnei ish, right? Right? So that is the piece of Reb Yaakov. And again, I have to tell you that Reb Yaakov said this to my father. At least my father told me that he's going to tell this piece to Mashiach if he lives to see him. When my father told me this, I asked him the kasha, which my father didn't answer, was like, I never heard you get online to make Divrei Torah. When Mashiach comes, everybody's going to get online. And I'm going to tell him a Dvar Torah on Tanach, and he's going to tell him a Dvar Torah on Chazal, and some Sephardi rabbi is going to tell him something on a Zohar, right? I mean, I never heard of such a thing, right? But that's the story. Now let's go on to the next piece.
Maybe the people who are members of the
Shurin, I just want to clarify. This Ksav Yad does not appear in the published Emes Yaakov?
No, it appears, but he changed a lot of the language to clarify it.
Uh-huh.
Now, Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky didn't do that with the Tanach. He left the language, okay?
And then put footnotes.
Everybody got angry at Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky. Look, the guy has 4 lines of footnotes, and you have 40 lines. Why did you do that? Right? The answer is Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky didn't want to fool around with Reb Yaakov's Ksav Yad, except where, let's say Reb Yaakov left out a word. If Reb Yaakov left that word, it was obvious, so he put it in a bracket or something, right? But where he didn't leave out a word, it was just clarity. He clarified on the bottom. So if you compare the two, which I think Max was doing while we were learning, you'll see it's different. But the yesod is the same. But the way Reb Yaakov is bringing it out is a bit different than the way Reb Daniel. It became a little bit of Reb Daniel's, writing and not Reb Yaakov's writing. Okay, now we have a little bit of time. Okay, so the next.
Did I interrupt you?
Yeah, sure.
Stu, did I interrupt you? You wanted to say something?
I don't remember, but I wanted to go on to the new piece because this new piece is going to be probably 3 sessions. Okay.
Which one? Which starting from where?
Page Hey. It says Shoftim Hagdama.
Okay.
Hagdama the Shoftim.
Right, Hagdama l'Shoftim. Now, Reb Yaakov did not write Hagdama l'Shoftim, but I spoke to Reb Yaakov about it. When I saw this piece in 38 places, right, and that's the way it really looks like, all the way from Lithuania till probably page 2000, right? I told Reb Yaakov, this should be your Hagdama to Shoftim, and he liked the idea. He said, yes, you're right. Okay? So, and he used to tell me over, and every time it was machadish something, he added it to me. Like he said, I got a new thing. When I came to visit him, I got a new thing on that Hagdama l'Shoftim. Anyway, so Reb Yosef had to really do a lot of research here, meaning he had to go through the whole, all the different places in the Ksav Yad, and then he came up with quite a large piece. It's probably about 7-8 pages. Okay. Now, I told you this piece he told to Rav Soloveitchik, but I don't want to contradict myself. He didn't tell the whole piece to Rav Soloveitchik. He told a piece of this, a very important piece, and the piece has to do with how you learn up a Rambam, and that's why I told it to Rav Soloveitchik, because Rav Soloveitchik loves the Rambam, and he knew that, and he was trying to show Rav Soloveitchik that he's a brisker. So he learns up the Rambam like a brisker. Okay, you're going to see that. Okay, but he does one thing that the brisker don't do. Okay, he uses the Tanach, the pshat in the Tanach, to understand the Rambam like a brisker. He uses the text of the Tanakh. And that's why Rav Soloveitchik was nispol. That normally when you're trying to figure out if Yoshua was a melech or a shofet, you use the Rambam, you use Gemaras, you never use the Tanakh to figure it out. Rabbi Yaakov used the Tanakh and he told it to Rav Soloveitchik. And Reb Yaakov was, you will see as we go along, Reb Yaakov clearly knew Tanakh extremely well. And Rav Soloveitchik was very impressed with that. And Rav Soloveitchik told somebody, I don't remember who, that I don't know Reb Yaakov well, but I know he knows Tanakh excellently. Okay? But he wouldn't give in to open up a yeshiva with Reb Yaakov anyway. And I told you, if Hershel Shechter writes about the excuse what he gave, and I don't really know what the real answer to that is. Okay, so let's just maybe begin. Hagdama, begeder melech v'shofet. What we're trying to do is define the difference between a melech and a shofet. Hinei aleinu leva'er halacha shehevi a Rambam Perek Aleph halacha zayin hilchos malachim. Okay, what does the Rambam say over there? Kishamamidim hamelech moshchenoto v'chulei. When you establish a king, you anoint him. Umeyacha shemoshchem hamelech hareze zochalo levonav ad olam. Okay, and after you anoint the king, the king is zocha, right, for his children forever. Okay, now it's not exactly the lashon of the Rambam, and I'm going to tell you why. Because Reb Yaakov really knew the Rambam Baal Peh. Okay, most people know Shas Baal Peh. He also knew the Rambam Baal Peh. Okay, so a lot of times he didn't use the Rambam. He didn't open up the Rambam. He just wrote from memory. Okay, so you'll see that it's not. Now I wonder why Rabbi Yosef didn't sort of, look it up and do it. I don't know why he didn't. But the words that are changed here are very insignificant. You can check it out.
Are you reading from
Where are you exactly? You're on Kuf Pei Hey?
Kuf Pei Hey.
Oh, hey. I don't have that for some reason.
No, you have it last week.
Sweet.
Oh, okay, good. All right.
I'm never up to where we have to be.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll have to go through. Yeah,
so the Rambam says when you have a king, right? When you want to make a king, Ma'amidin hamelech. When you want to establish a king, you are anointed with the Shemen HaMishcha, and then he's zocha levanav beinav ad olam. V'hine milashono shzeh mashu b'sheyeshna amodas hamelech v'achar kach meshicha. Here's a brisker vart. There's two dinim. There's hamodas hamelech and meshichas hamelech. Now, when you're mamid a melech, but you haven't anointed him yet, he's going to have a different halacha. The minute you anoint him, something else happens. He's going to say this. When you actually are moshech him, you actually anoint him, then he's zocha. If you establish the king and it takes a day to go to the Mishkan and get the Shemen HaMishcha, right? So the Navi and the base that established the king, he doesn't yet inherit it to his kids because only through the Mashiach does it become an inheritance. And Reb Yaakov, by the way, eventually is going to explain why. How does the Mashiach change the status to make it an inheritance? But if theoretically, right, the king would become a king through the Beis Din and the Navi, right, and then die before the Mashiach, his kids would not inherit it. Okay? Because the Rambam says, once the Rambam is very clear. Once you moshech the melech, then he inherits it to his kids. Mashma, that is the din malchus before that, right? But he doesn't inherit to the kids. Okay? That's why he thought Rav Soloveitchik would like this, because he's giving him brisker ideas. Okay? Okay, so you know what? We'll stop here and we'll take it up next week. Now, next week I will be here because I'm coming back from England on Sunday, but the week after that I won't be. Okay. In other words, I'll be in America. I'll be in Texas, right? And in LA and in Chicago. So I'll miss 1 week. 1 week I will miss, not this coming next week, but the week after that. I'll let you know next week again, but that's what it'll be. Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Does Yaakov deal with questions like how come Rivka's 3-year-old and 3 years old and doing all of this?
Not really. I knew someone was going to ask that question, but Reb Yaakov, not that I'm aware of that, Reb Yaakov doesn't deal with that type of question. And it's frustrating, Jonathan, that these great people don't deal with it, right? How could it be? It could be if someone wants to ask Reb Yaakov, they may have an answer Reb Yaakov gave, because it's very curious. What would a great rabbi have said about that, right? But yeah, in general, I don't know if there's exceptions, where sometimes Reb Yaakov will deal with something like that, because there's a whole bunch of questions like that. It's not just Rivka. There's a whole Yitzchak was 37 at the Akedah, right? And the Ibn Ezra says if he would be 37, he would have run away, because he's supposed to believe Avram that he's supposed to lay down on the Mizbeach. Right? The Ibn Ezra says he was obviously a kid, not 37, like Chazal say, because he would have run away, So what does Reb Yaakov say about that? Would he have run away? Right? So I don't know. I really don't know what Reb Yaakov would have said about such a thing, right? I mean, I've tried to give answers to it, but it's everybody just says that Rivka was very mature. In those days they were very mature, which I don't know. You got to really prove that. It's not so simple to just say that they were mature, because don't forget they lived much longer, so maybe they matured much later. I don't know. But it's not clear at all. You're saying they matured earlier, much earlier, but they lived much longer. We do know that maturing has to do with. When I don't know when Jonathan, when you were growing up, but when I was growing up, when you were 18 years old, you had to decide your life. Okay, you had to decide, are you going to be an accountant, right, or a psychologist, or an economist, or an account. I said an accountant, or a doctor, or a lawyer, right? That was the 5 or 6 things. Now, nobody ever talked about a scientist. Okay, that was pretty rare, right? But those are the 5 or 6 things you had. But if someone said, I want to be a scientist, nobody got bent out of shape, right? I have to tell you, what?
We see the opposite, though. They didn't have kids, till they were, in the 100 to 200 years old. So yeah. We see they matured much slower.
Right, that's what you would think, that they matured much slower. So what is this 3-year-old, right? The 3-year-old today is a little kid. She must have been a nothing. So I don't have an answer to that. But I'm trying to say is that in certain areas they may have matured before, because today when you speak to a kid, right, I'm always amazed when I speak to my students and they're 24 years old. Well, they went to university, they got a master's degree, and they don't think they want to do anything with that. They want to do something else, right? This is the last, I would say, 20 years, maybe 15 years, right? Where you don't decide till you're 35 what you want to do with your life. And it frustrates parents like crazy, okay? Because every guy in my class in yeshiva knew what he wanted to do with his life at age 18.
Because his parents didn't have money. And
that's part of the reason. He's right.
My father also decided his parents couldn't even afford a car. They rented an apartment their whole lives. It's a whole different.
Right. Today,
it's one of
by the way, Rabbi, what? What'd you say?
One of the many maladies of American culture.
Correct. But Rabbi Jonathan,
tell me that in England it's not like that.
Right. Jonathan Sachs points it out, that the fact that you grow up, he says, I didn't have anything. His father was so poor, right? We all had to decide what we wanted to be because he was really poor. By the way, I don't know who his father was, but he must have been brilliant, even though it sounds like he just had a job. Because I had two of his brothers in Chappelle's, okay? And they were both geniuses, okay?
Jonathan
I know
Sachs
they both
taught
became
rap.
lawyers. Jonathan Sachs's brothers went to Chappelle's in 1980.
Really? Wow.
Both of them, okay? Now, I don't know what happened to them. I know they both became lawyers. They may have gone to Oxford or Cambridge and become lawyers. I know they became lawyers, right? But I remember having them as students, and they were mamish brilliant people, okay? So you don't get 3 kids out of 3 kids all being brilliant unless the parents are really, the DNA there is like just unbelievable. But he says that in those days they had to decide. And now, the whole idea of what's the famous psychologist who talks about the maturing grades, a Talmud of Freud. I forget what his name is now. I forget all the.
Piaget? Is that the one?
Who? Which one?
Piaget.
Not Piaget. He wasn't a Talmud of Freud, but Piaget does talk about this. Erik Erikson, that talks about the different, the different stages of the person. Well, today those stages go much slower, and when the person is 35, they about start thinking about what they want to do with their life. Right? That is what I found with the students in the school and with my own kids. Right? I had a few kids that changed their mind in the middle of university. Wait a minute, I paid for this, right? You're going to finish this, right? And all of a sudden, they're not doing it anymore. I have one daughter that only has to take 2 more tests to graduate Michlala, okay? And she doesn't want to be a teacher, so she's not taking the test. What about the 12,000 checks I paid every year? That's 48,000 checks.
Tell her to do it now, because I just wrote the Hebrew U for my MA. I never got the degree. I never finished it because I went to work. And I decided, you know what, Chaval. So I just wrote to them. They closed the department that I studied in Bichlal, but they have my name in the computer. So tell them, Chaval, that you should wait.
Right. Do it. I told her to finish it. But she says, why should I finish, Daddy? I don't want to be a teacher.
Because you paid 48,000 shekel, that's why.
That's why you got to finish it. I'll tell you, talking to the wall over here, right? Anyway, I mean, she's a woman with 2 kids already. So, like, what am I supposed to say to her? But anyway, that's the world that we live in today. And by the way, when the women tell me what they majored in, right now, they tell me, like I said, what'd you major in? I don't know what they're talking about. Communications? What the heck is communications? I didn't need a degree in communication. I know how to communicate, right? And now they have 5 different types of communication degrees, right? I mean, like, give me a break. I don't know what these are, And on every field is psychology. Well, it's not just psychology. It's music therapy. It's art therapy. It's therapy. I don't know what the heck, they're telling me what they majored in, and I don't know what they're talking about. Literally in every department, there's at least 25 majors that we didn't have. I don't think any of you had, even though you're a lot younger than me, some of you, but you didn't have them. I'm telling you. You had
to basket weaving.
Yeah, right. I remember when a woman, there was such a thing as home economics.
Right.
Women majored in home economics, but there was economics and home economics. But that was the whole thing about economics, right? Operations research in graduate school, economics, operations research, there was such a thing, right? But I'm sure in the areas of science, there's a million things in the area of science today, what you could do.
Yeah, but they're real. Those are real.
Right. Anyway, okay, we'll stop here, guys. Any other questions, points? Good. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll take it up next week. Bezrat Hashem. This is a very interesting article. You really enjoy it.
Can someone send me the page we were just doing? I went through everything. I even went through what I saved online.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you very much.
Did you guys have it, or you just were like, listen, you had it?
Oh, so actually, the last. You know what? The last page. I also didn't have the Kuf Pei Hey. I didn't have that.
That's what.
Oh, you didn't have the Kuf Pei Hey?
I don't know.
I didn't have.
I didn't have the safer. So
if somebody could post it on the group, that would be good.
Yeah.
Okay, good, because it's Michael. You had the Kuf Pei Hey?
Yes.
Okay, so it was definitely sent.
It was on last week's handout.
Last week's
That's so
handout.
weird.
Page-
As I was hustling trying to find it, I went through last week's handout and it wasn't there
It's
on mine.
page
Somehow-
3 of the PDF. Page 3 of the PDF. It starts at the top with Kuf Lam and Hey.
Aha. Okay. But guys, okay. So I'll quickly go over it next week, and then we'll go on.
Okay, Yeshua Gadol. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Take care.